It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. And everybody wondering, what is Joe Biden going to do in this interview that's going to be coming out shortly on ABC News with George Stephanopoulos? Supposedly no teleprompter, but it will be pre-taped. He also had a rally today. But what about the media suddenly pretending like it's an epiphany that Joe Biden maybe doesn't have all his mental capacities? Well, joining us now is Miranda Devine. You have broken so many big scoops on all this, the New York Post reporter. Miranda, your reaction of sort of the media's role in all of this from beginning to literally right now at this moment as we're waiting for what could be a do or die interview for his campaign.
Hi, Rita. Look, I just think it's preposterous that the same media who have been pretending since the 2020 campaign, I mean, it was obvious in January of 2020 in Iowa that Joe Biden had cognitive malfunctions, and they pretended that there was nothing wrong with him. They've pretended he is. And then now they expect us to believe that they just suddenly realized that he's shot. No, it's just that it's become so obvious, thanks to the debate performance, that they can no longer cover it up. So now they're backtracking and trying to finesse the timeline and, saying, oh, well, there were a few recent clues. No, it's been crystal clear since January of 2020 and before that Joe Biden had memory lapses, was wandering, needed teleprompter support to give a basic stump speech. So, look, we shouldn't be surprised. These are the same people that told us that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. And you can expect that they're going to keep on lying right up until the 2024 election and beyond if Donald Trump wins.
Ed Cox.
Yeah, Miranda, you brought up a very important point. People forget that the people in Iowa and New Hampshire back in the 2020 primaries took a look at him up close, and his opponents were locked in their seats as the jury on the impeachment trial in the Senate, and they got a good look at him, and they put him fourth in Iowa and fifth in New Hampshire. I never saw anyone score that badly in those two and yet go on to win the nomination. Something happened in South Carolina, and I think Obama was involved in it. But the people in Iowa and New Hampshire saw he was incompetent back then.
Yes, they did. You're so right. And in South Carolina, of course, Jim Clyburn, who's the Democratic kingmaker, just gave his imprimatur to Joe Biden, and that rescued his completely dead campaign. And then, if you remember, Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, who were the frontrunners, got tapped on the shoulder, and they agreed to go quietly in return for some sort of benefits from the Democratic Party. I mean, that is what the Democrats do. They do stick together.
They do stick together. I have no doubt that Obama was involved in sorting that out because he saw that Trump would beat Bernie Sanders, who was getting momentum at that time, because of Biden's weakness in the primaries and in the caucus in Iowa.
Yeah, really interesting. Go ahead, Miranda.
Yeah. I was just going to say, they carried him over the line. He promised at that point that he was only an interim president who would pass on to the younger generation. His then stepping forward to run in 2024, I think, was his gravest mistake, because the party would have sort of eulogized him and turned him into a hero if he had passed on the baton like he promised.
I want to ask you, Miranda, too, because we literally are on the precipice. We're supposed to be getting maybe within minutes, a clip at least of this interview with Joe Biden and George Stephanopoulos. Again, it's pre-taped. They say they're not going to edit it. It's supposed to be running full tonight. And then next week, he claims he's going to be doing some sort of a little bit of a press conference with NATO folks, because a lot of the NATO leaders. But this is still so micromanaged. You and I have been in journalism a long time, Miranda. And if he really wanted to, or if this was President Trump, for example, darn well, if they made some accusation like this after a dismal debate performance like Biden had, Trump would have come out the next day and said, I'm here. He would have come out in the briefing and said, I'm here for the next 5-6 hours. I'll answer whatever questions you have. No script, no teleprompter, nothing. And it still seems so micromanaged. It is really stunning, this moment. And do you think that President Biden can kind of have another sort of mini basement campaign like he did during COVID?
Well, they may try it. At the moment, certainly Hunter Biden is there as his chief strategist in the White House, hanging on for grim life. So let's see if the Democratic grandee become Hunter Biden with Jill Biden and various other aides behind him.
So where does it go from here after this interview tonight? Again, there's been these moments, and listen, George Stephanopoulos, we've known him a long time, obviously a seasoned broadcaster, but he did have ties to the Clinton White House, knows the Bidens well. He did the famous interview with him after the Afghanistan withdrawal, where Joe Biden, even there, said, nobody told me to get out of Bagram. So to George's credit, he said nobody, and he said no, and it turned out that wasn't correct. There are a lot of wrong things. What are you expecting tonight, and how critical is this if he continues on this drip, drip, drip? What do you see? And do you see that the media has now sort of turned, Miranda, because during these briefings, every question is now about his competence. Every question. Do you think he's lost now, the media, that there's such egg on their face from things that you and others have been reporting we have for a long time?
Well, it is face-saving by the media, but I don't think that any interview, especially pre-canned with George Stephanopoulos, is going to save Joe Biden. And look, we will see, though, from the questions that Stephanopoulos asks, exactly what direction the establishment party is going, because Stephanopoulos is renowned as the Clintons' cleanup merchant. Bimbo eruptions, he was responsible for tidying that up. He will do what the party wants, and so he'll either expose Biden to further ridicule, or otherwise he will cover up for him and allow him to sort of muster up some sort of dignity in the interview.
Miranda, last question. The media, all the media that was supporting President Biden, three choices. Were they stupid? Were they told to do that by their corporate owners? Or was it something in their heart?
I really do think that most of the media genuinely believes that Donald Trump is an existential threat, and that Joe Biden, for some reason, they've bought the mythology that he's a decent man, which he is the opposite of. And so that's in their heart. But also, you can't necessarily blame the Washington press corps entirely. It's their editors back home that just don't elevate this story about Joe Biden's cognitive problems to the level that it deserved. And again, it's because they were in the tank for the Democrats against Donald Trump. They think that, they even talk about throwing objectivity out the window when it comes to Donald Trump because he's a different case. They always have an excuse.
Miranda, last thing. You should listen to Greg Kelly's interview with Jill Biden's ex-husband, Mr. Stevenson, and what he's doing now to Donald Trump, he did 40 years ago to Mr. Stevenson. He owed $8,000 in taxes, eight days late, and Senator Biden had him, Stevenson, arrested in handcuffs for $8,000. He put the Department of Justice on him. Well, you should listen to Greg Kelly's interview. It's going to be on WABC website.
Good on Greg.
And that will. I think that will give you your next big story.
Thank you, Miranda, so much.
Hi, it's Lou Dobbs for Priority Gold, America's precious metals dealer. These are volatile times with high inflation, soaring debt, wars on multiple continents, and rising financial stress. Central banks are buying gold to diversify their reserves, so are many Americans. Call Priority Gold and find out how precious metals can help you diversify your portfolio. They're highly rated and happy to help. Call 1-866-303-6357 or get a free gold guide at PriorityGoldGuide.com. That's PriorityGoldGuide.com.